There is a lot to unpack in this video, guys, so sit back, relax as I take you through all of the crazy drama that has happened in the Houston Rockets organization over the past, since the last time I made a video on this whole James Harden debacle. So before we get to the content, this is our third video of the day. It's 11:30 p.m. Eastern time as I'm recording this. So just do your boy a favor and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It pretty much tells YouTube, yo, this Mike guy makes great NBA content. He's on each and every rumor practically immediately when it comes out. Please push him so he could get more subscribers. On top of that, I do gaming on another channel called TheFlightMike TV. If you're even slightly interested in gaming at all whatsoever, please go check it out because my Twitch account got banned and it's really demoralizing going from streaming for a lot of people to not so many people because I'm new to the YouTube algorithm. Now that I've got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Guys, there's a lot to catch you up on that eventually leads to a trade here. So let's get started. Yesterday, I came out and said that James Harden requested a trade to the Brooklyn Nets. Now, a lot of people hated on this title because they said, yo, he's not demanding a trade, and I clarified he's not demanding a trade. He went to the Rockets and said, yo, Rockets, if you could do me a favor and if you were to trade me, could you please trade me to Brooklyn? I would greatly appreciate that. Well, that kind of turned a little bit more melodramatic because we found out earlier today that James Harden really wanted to go to the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, he wanted to go to the Brooklyn Nets so badly that the Houston Rockets kind of tested to see his allegiance to their franchise, which, by the way, horrible move, Rockets, because he was already ghosting you and he was already showing you signs of not being so interested in staying with you long term. Both him and Russell Westbrook were not as committed to the franchise, and you decide to offer him a $50 million a year contract. Now, look, I'm not hating on the Rockets for offering their star player a $50 million yearly contract. It's a great test to see whether they should trade Harden or not. And the message was clear. James Harden turned down a $50 million contract and stated, get me to Brooklyn. And now the Rockets and Nets began trade talks. But there has not been any meaningful dialogue, according to Adrian Wojnarowski. As a matter of fact, the Houston Rockets said that they don't have interest in anyone on the Nets roster other than Kyrie Irving or Kevin Durant. At least they need a package centered around those two. Which brings me to my next point. If you're watching my content and you're subscribed to my content and you're claiming all my content and my coverage of these rumors is clickbait and false, why are you subscribed to me to begin with? Do you think I just make this up on my own and just put out fake news there just because I think it's fun? I bring you rumors and I try to turn over each and every stone, and I'd like to think that 70% of the time we hit, and of course sometimes we miss, but sometimes the legitimate people miss. But I digress, because this kind of evolved. There's a reason why I'm bringing this up. So this kind of conveys to the Houston Rockets that they're rebuilding, because now Russell Westbrook wants out and James Harden wants out, which, by the way, they completely botched this situation. I said over and over and over again, you have a ton of leverage until James Harden demands a trade. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? James Harden has demanded a trade. Although this wasn't nearly as dramatic as Anthony Davis demanding a trade, it's pretty freaking close. Well, the Rockets are kind of implying that, hey, we're going through a full-scale rebuild because after acquiring Robert Covington earlier this year, bear in mind, in order to get Robert Covington to the Houston Rockets to begin with, they traded Clint Capella to Atlanta. But now the Houston Rockets are making a move that kind of screams, hey, we're rebuilding and we're about to have a fire sale and we're going to rebuild around this brand new general manager and Steven Silas, our first-year head coach. The Rockets are trading Robert Covington to Portland to bring back Trevor Ariza for his third time, a 2020 first-round pick, which is the 16th pick in this year's NBA draft, and a 2021 protected first-round pick. And in order to finesse the Stepien rule, the way it's going to work is the Portland Trail Blazers are going to draft the player that the Houston Rockets want, and then they're going to trade him to Houston officially. This is a very good trade if the Houston Rockets are accepting their fate that they have to give up on Russell Westbrook and James Harden. James Harden said that he feels like his title window in Houston is officially closed. Now that you're moving on from Mike D'Antoni and Russell Westbrook and him don't like the culture there, it makes a lot of sense why you would elect to trade the 3-and-D player that you acquired in order to potentially bolster your chances at making a championship run over to a new team to get first-round picks and another pretty good 3-and-D player that is clearly past his prime in Trevor Ariza, although it's a familiar face. Now, what's absolutely hysterical about this entire scenario is, I don't know if you guys heard, but when all these negative reports surrounding the Houston Rockets came out a couple of days ago, the number one thing we heard was that Trevor Ariza was very close to re-signing with the Houston Rockets during his second stint there. But he felt like he was owed an apology from them. That apology never came, and he decided to sign elsewhere. Well, he finds himself back in a Rockets jersey for the third time. The first time he was seen as a potential franchise cornerstone after leaving the Los Angeles Lakers after winning a championship there. The second time, he was seen as more of a 3-and-D role player that played a huge role in the Rockets' push in the 2017 NBA playoffs when they made it to the Western Conference Finals after acquiring Chris Paul. And now he finds himself back there for a third time on what appears to be a rebuilding Houston Rockets roster. Now, I could be wrong. They could also see more value in the 16th pick and Trevor Ariza, and they may just want to recover some of those lost draft picks that they lost in the Russell Westbrook trade. But either way, I think this is a good trade for both sides. I feel like what the Houston Rockets are getting in return, at least for their franchise, is definitely more valuable for them than Robert Covington would ever be to them. At the same time, the Portland Trail Blazers could definitely make use of a 3-and-D guard such as Robert Covington, and they add even more to their depth. I don't know if Carmelo Anthony's going to come back either. So if Robert Covington slides into Carmelo Anthony's role, you pretty much get a more efficient scorer that plays significantly better defense than Carmelo Anthony. No offense to Carmelo Anthony, that's just how his game is. So I'm kind of confused about what this trade conveys. So I'm going to actually ask you guys, Mike Mafia, let me know what you think. Do you think that the Houston Rockets are attempting to launch a full-scale rebuild? Do you think that this trade implies that the Houston Rockets are rebuilding? Or do you think that they're getting more value and they could potentially push for a championship with Russell Westbrook, James Harden, Steven Silas, and whoever they draft with the 16th overall pick? And then maybe they could lure a new player over from, I don't know, by potentially trading for him. It doesn't really sound super believable now that I'm putting the words out of my mouth. It seems to me that the Rockets are headed for a rebuild, but maybe you guys see it differently. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think, and make sure you leave a like. Aside from that, I'm your boy, TheFlightMike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.